times they get into debates with non-Muslims unnecessarily about the miracle of the Quran, about the fact that the Quran it can only be from Allah, and they want to convey that to a non-Muslim, and this is almost the first thing they talk to with a non-Muslim about. Like, let me tell you about Islam, and the first thing I'm going to tell you is look at how awesome the Quran is, and let me tell you how many miracles it has in it, and I can prove it to you, and all of that. And it becomes like a back and forth debate. And this is a very problematic approach for many reasons. And one of them is, in debates, nobody ever goes into a debate to listen to the other side, or to be interested in what the other has to say. When you go into a debate, you go into it to crush your opponent. So even if you're defeated, you are going to be thinking, how do I come back tomorrow and beat him back up? How do I get back up with a response? How do I come up with a counter? You don't listen to something that defeats an argument and say, okay, you know what, I agree, I accept what you have to say. There's a pride that comes inside the human being. It takes over, and it doesn't let you accept in a debate forum. Whether it's the truth or falsehood doesn't even matter. And the idea of starting the message of Islam with somebody, introducing them to the message of Islam, with a conversation which will naturally turn into a debate is a problem. That's not a good approach to take with anybody. And certainly this is not the approach of the Quran. Now, a few places in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal issued a challenge, and I think all of you here are familiar with the challenge. You know, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ. If you're in any doubt about what we've sent down, bring a surah like it. But you know, that ayah came down in Medina. The ayah came down in Medina. And actually, at the best, in late Meccan revelation. In other words, the Quran did not come down in the beginning, and the Prophet ﷺ went around to people and said, look, if you don't think this is the truth, bring a surah. Bring a surah. It didn't work like that. Da'wah is not you go, you set up a table, and non-Muslims walk by, hey, come here. Bring me a surah. What's a surah? You know, I just came to eat some free pizza. What's the surah business, you know? It's the wrong approach. And what it does is that actually it creates an interest in non-Muslims to want to refute the arguments of the Muslims, to try to constantly undercut the arguments of the Muslims. Here's the second problem, and a more important problem. Allah Azza wa Jal revealed to us this most powerful book, which truly is a miracle. It cannot be from a human being. And I'll talk to you about my personal journey in that conclusion, inshallah ta'ala, in tonight's talk. But before I do, what I think is miraculous about the Quran, or what I studied and I found that this is so incredible, this is so beyond the capability of a human being, is my understanding. That's my understanding. I cannot tell someone this is why the Quran is a miracle, because I'm only talking about my understanding. All I can say is, to the best of what I can appreciate, this is what I love about the Quran. This is what makes it beautiful to me. You may see it and you may not see it. Because my understanding is not the reason that the Quran is a miracle. The Quran is a miracle for reasons beyond my understanding. It is powerful beyond what I can know and what I don't know. It's bigger than me. So if I only associate the miracle of the Quran with my particular understanding, then we're actually limiting the miracle of the Quran. And it can't be limited. We cannot limit it. And if somebody disagrees with is it possible, by the way, is it possible that my understanding is incorrect? Is that possible? Yes. Sure. So if somebody proves me wrong, they should not think that they proved the Quran wrong. There's a difference between those two things. There's a difference between them. So I can share with you the best of my understanding and still maintain that my understanding may be limited, but the word of Allah is perfect. You have to maintain the distinction between those two. Now, having given you that brief introduction, I want to talk to you now about why should we appreciate the miracle of the Quran anyway? What difference does it make? After all, we're already Muslim. Or I think at least most of the people in the audience today are Muslim. So you're already believers. You already believe in the word of Allah, and it's not from a human being. This is not the authorship of Muhammad sallallahu These are the words of Allah. Then what's the point? Why even discuss this point? Why even discuss this issue? I have two things to share with you on this subject. The first of them is a conversation about one of the people in the Quran, one of the dialogues of a person in the Quran who, when we think about Iman, we think about him, Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Ibrahim alayhi salam said to Allah, Ya Allah, show me, how do you bring life to the dead? How do you do that? Now, Allah Azza wa Jal asked him a very strange question in response, and a very reasonable one. He said, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ? So you don't already have Iman? You didn't believe yet? You didn't have Iman? Because why would somebody ask, show me how, until they already have Iman? But the response of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Ibrahim, you can think about the Iman of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Where am I, and where are you, and where's the Iman of Ibrahim alayhi salam? And he says to Allah, Bala, of course, why not? No, I have Iman. وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. Because I just want to satisfy my heart. I want to put my heart at ease. In other words, when a Muslim, even a prophet, a messenger, sees a miracle of Allah, when they see that, there's something that happens to their heart. They become tranquil. The heart becomes at ease. And this is a very powerful thing that Allah told us in this ayah. وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. The Muslim should study the miracle of the Quran and appreciate the miracle of the Quran, because then the heart, not the mind. You see? We think that we're studying the miracle to satisfy our minds. Now we're intellectually convinced that it's a miracle. But the ayah is about our hearts. It's a spiritual reality. When you appreciate the miracle of the Quran, you will appreciate the greatness of Allah. The grandeur you have of Allah. The next time you say Allahu Akbar, it's going to feel different. It's not going to feel the same way. You know, I tell my children the story of Musa alayhi salam and the water parted. It's an amazing story. And they're walking through the water. And I can make them try to imagine it. But it will never be the same as somebody who was actually walking through and looking on both sides, and he's seeing Tawd Alim, he's seeing like mountains raised of water on both sides. That person's Iman is something else right then. Because they are living and they're tasting, they're experiencing a miracle. So the Quran, we want to taste its miracle. We want to at least appreciate something about it that we haven't before. Now I'll talk to you about something personal, about myself, and then we'll get into the examples that I wanted to share with you. I have 5 or 6 examples. I hope I get through all of them with you tonight, inshallah. I feel like I'm leashed. Can somebody help me turn? Oh, this is on. Look at that, I can walk around. Awesome. Okay. Happening this the whole time the machine thing was going. Okay, so now, personally, myself, the first thing that made me curious about the Quran was its message. Like, what is Allah saying? And what is Allah's advice to me? What is Allah's guidance for me? So the first aspect of my relationship and your relationship with the Quran, I would argue, is its message. Its message. This is what made me curious about learning the Arabic language. This curiosity made me listen to lectures about the Quran, read tafsir. I got into this study because I was curious about the message itself. But then, this is a few years ago, this is maybe 2003. I came across a lecture series in the Arabic language, and my Arabic was not very strong at the time. So I just started listening to Arabic lectures, and I would understand maybe 30%. But I still forced myself to listen and just kind of take notes and stuff. So I listened to Tariq Suwaidan's I'jaz al-Quran in Arabic. May Allah reward him. He did about a 16, 17-hour series on the miracle of the Quran. And this was the first time I heard a topic, the miracle of the Quran. And when I listened to it and I started taking notes, again, I only understood about what? How much? About 30%. But when I took notes, I was hearing things I've never heard before in my life. I've never ever come across some of this stuff in my life, ever. And I was blown away that this subject even existed. Because until then, the only thing that interested me about the Quran was its what? Message. But now there was another conversation. What about its miracle? What about its miracle? And actually the word miracle is not used in the Quran. The word miracle is not used in the Quran. We use the Arabic phraseology, the terms we use are i'jaz al-Quran. I'jaz al-Quran. You know, i'jaz in Arabic comes from ajaz. And ajaz in Arabic is to be on your knees, to not be able to get up. When someone says ana ajiz in Arabic, that means I'm incapable. I am incapable. So ana mustati', ana qadir, I'm capable, ana ajiz, I'm incapable. Now, i'jaz means something that makes something else incapable. Like if two people are wrestling each other and one guy steps on the other one's face and he can't get up now, the one who's standing on top of the other guy, he's mu'jiz. He's mu'jiz. And the guy that got stepped on, he can't even get up now, he's mu'jaz. That's the Arabic of it. Okay? I'll give you another example of i'jaz. If you're crossing the street, or hopefully not you, somebody's crossing the street, there's a truck coming by. They didn't notice the truck. They didn't notice the truck. And they look for a second and the truck is like 1 foot away from you. Your eyes go wide open. You realize you got nowhere to go. That second before you turn into like pancake, 1 second, you experienced i'jaz. You were overpowered. You were completely overpowered. The discussion in Islamic history is the Qur'an's power to overpower its opponents. The Qur'an is so powerful that somebody who tries to oppose it, somebody who tries to attack it, somebody who tries to come up with something else like it, is always made incapable. They keep falling on their knees. It brings its enemies to their knees. That is the idea of i'jaz. That's not the same as miracle. The word miracle is used in strange ways in English. It's not the same. But since it's a popular term, I even chose it in the title. Because if I said the Qur'an's power to bring its opponents to its knees, it would have been a long title. And by the time, I don't know how you fit that on a flyer. You have to go all around the page or something. I don't know. Right? So I didn't choose that title. But now, for me personally, I started studying this subject and I started taking notes. I still remember. I started just kind of taking examples down on what's being talked about and how it's a miracle. In what sense is it a miracle? And sometimes I would study these examples and I would have to stop taking notes. And I would just have to go in a corner and cry. I'd be overwhelmed by what I was reading and what I was researching. And I would say to myself, how come I never knew this? How come I never knew this? Every time I heard about the Quran, I heard about it as a message. And I appreciated it as a miracle, as something that's overpowering. I felt overpowered. I felt like, Ya Rabbi, okay, Ya Allah. I just went and fell into sajda and prayed or like tickled a baby or something. I couldn't study anymore. I had to stop studying because it was overwhelming. It really was. When I put enough of my notes together, I decided to actually turn it into a course. And enough of my notes came together on this subject. I used to call that course Divine Speech. And I taught it in the United States about, I think, 60 or 70 times, all across the United States. And I taught it once in the UK also, in London. And from the 50 times that I taught it in the United States, from what I know, 17 people took Shahada at the program itself. These are non-Muslims that came, college, university students, professors, working professionals, friends of Muslims that came and attended, and by the end of it, they just took Shahada. And it's not because of me, because I know this stuff is super powerful. And before I share some examples with you, I'll share one more story with you. I was in Los Angeles. The first time I taught Divine Speech was in Los Angeles. And this mother, I used to teach on a Friday night, and all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. That's what I used to do. And when I was done teaching on Sunday, this mother came up to me and she was crying. And I said, what did I say? Sorry. And she said, no, I want to talk to you for a second about my son. And I said, okay, tell me about your son. He says, well, when you had the program on Friday night, he didn't want to come, my 17-year-old son. He wasn't interested. And I said, that's understandable. When I was 17, I wasn't interested in Islamic lectures either. And she goes, well, no, he had Lakers tickets, front row seats. You know who the Lakers are? Yeah. If you don't know who the Lakers are, make a istighfar right now. But anyway, so he has front row seats to the Lakers, and his mother says, go attend an Islamic lecture with me. And you know what? Before I go on, I have to tell you, I don't know how many mothers have come up to me, or how many youth have come up to me. My mother makes me listen to your lectures. And I just said, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. It's not my fault. There's so many young people who have a grudge against me because they're mothers. Listen to Brother Allah. And I'm like, eat that guy. Ruined my life. But anyway, so she says, I could not convince him. Finally, I told him, I will get you playoff tickets. Just come tonight. And playoff tickets are expensive. He said, fine. It's a deal. I'll go. So he came. And he came, and he actually stayed Friday. He came Saturday on his own and Sunday on his own. And when they were leaving, Friday night, when they were going back home, and this kid just missed the LA game. He's talking to his mother, and he says, Mom, today was actually the first time I believed that the Quran is not from human beings, from Allah. It can't be. Today was the first time. This was a Muslim child talking to a Muslim mother, and they didn't convert to Islam. They're born and raised, right? Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because this subject is important for us today. A lot of us have Islam, as I was mentioning in the khutbah at the university. A lot of our Islam is given to us by our parents, by the society in which we live, but we didn't feel it ourselves. We didn't taste it ourselves. We don't know why. We're told it's a miracle, but we don't know why. When I was younger, I heard hundreds of times the Quran is a miracle. The Quran is perfect. Its Arabic is amazing. The poets could not come up with anything to respond to the. You heard this before or no? Yes. You heard this, huh? And I used to say, wow. That's all. It's Quran's so awesome. Why is it awesome? Because its Arabic is awesome. Oh wow. But I don't know Arabic. Well, too bad for you. It's still awesome. Okay. I was like, I guess it's until you know Arabic, you can't see it. You know? It's like telling someone something behind this glass door. It's frosted glass, it's stained glass, you can't see through it. Behind this door is something amazing. Can I see it? No. You? Look at you. Go learn Arabic first. That's the attitude. But the problem with that approach is, do you think most people are going to learn Arabic for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, even 1 year, even 6 months, just so they can see the miracle of the Quran? Most people won't do that. We have to present this message in the language of the people. And we have to stop saying, until you learn Arabic, too bad for you. No. And personally, I do believe that the true miracle, taste the miracle of Allah in this book, you have to have something of the Arabic language, but I made an obligation on myself. Whatever of it I can explain in English, I will. Whatever I can, if I can't make you taste 100%, even if I can make you taste like 2%, it's better than nothing. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And the more I studied this subject, wallahi, the more I said, man, people need to know this. People need to appreciate what Allah's made, what it says. Now, me personally, I am a student of language. I'm interested in linguistics. I'm interested in grammar and nuances, literature, literary analysis. So I studied the Quran from a language perspective. And so tonight, what I'm going to share with you is something unique about the Quran from the language perspective, from its language. Not from the scientific perspective, not from the legal perspective, not from the theological perspective. Those are good perspectives. They have their place. But that is not the perspective I'll share with you today. I want to share with you today about just how Allah says certain things. Is that clear to everybody? Okay? So I'm going to try to do maybe 6 or 7 examples with you guys of different dimensions of this thing. And my intention, inshallah ta'ala, I've made the intention, make dua that it happens. My intention is hopefully next summer, if my wife doesn't kill me, I am going to come with my family and hopefully I'll teach all of divine speech. Inshallah. That's my intention. Inshallah. Okay. So, first example. How do I explain this? You know, you ever seen like a cob of corn? Right? That in corn and some other plants also, they have this cover, and you have to peel it. And when you peel it, there are grains inside. You know what I'm talking about? That kab is called, in Arabic, it is called sumbula. And in order for me to make sure you understand what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make you repeat some things, okay? What is it called? Sumbula. Sumbula. That is an ear, like the whole bud, of grains inside. It could be corn, it could be other things. But when you peel it and it's got a lot of seeds inside, a lot of little dots and grains inside, that is called a sumbula. Okay. Now, if I say in English car, what's the plural? Cars. House. Mouse. Mouses. No? Okay. Mice. Okay, but usually in English, when you have a word, you give it a plural by adding what? An S. It usually works. I mean, it doesn't work with, you know, house and houses it works, but mouse, I don't know. You know, I might as well tell you a joke in the meantime. If you don't laugh, then you have to leave. Okay, so when I was studying economics, and I don't know why I was doing that, but I was studying macroeconomics when I was in college, and our professor was a Chinese fellow. He was doing his PhD in New York City, and he was a macroeconomics professor, and he spoke in a very heavy Chinese accent. And there were 300 students in the class. I mean, this is some of the best sleep I ever had in my life. But in any case, so he used to give his lecture, and when he would give his lecture, like, you really try to listen, you didn't understand until he said exam tomorrow. I was like, so the entire class, 300 students, we wrote a petition to the department, please, we cannot take an exam, we don't understand what this man is saying. So, he got very upset. He got angry at the entire class. So the next day he came to class and he said, he put a PowerPoint on the screen and he said, Professor Wang's list of complaints against English. He says, you complain about my English, I complain about English. So he said, the English language doesn't make any sense. You know, especially in the US, we say things like you park on a driveway and you drive on a parkway. Right? So, you know, and the plural of house is what? No, the plural of mouse is what? Mice, but the plural of house is not heis. And tooth is teeth, but booth is not beef. You know? So he had a whole list of these complaints. You know, and he went through it. He took 45 minutes and went through all of them. Right? It was the best economics class I've ever had. But anyway, the point I was going to make to all of you was, cars. Sumbula is singular. Sumbulat, say that? Sumbulat, that's plural. That is plural. But the Arabic language is kind of cool, because you can have more than one plural. It's weird. Like in English, you don't have cars and cars is. You don't have that. You have book and books. You don't have book and books and books is. You don't do that. But the Arabic language actually has multiple plurals for one word. I'll give you an example that you know. Kafir? Kafirun? Any other plurals you know? Kufar? Nabi? You can say Nabiyun. You can say what else? Anbiya. You have multiple plurals. It happens all the time in Arabic. So in the Arabic language, sumbula is singular. What was the plural? Sumbulat. And there's another plural, sanabil. Sanabil. This is vocabulary I'm teaching you without any notes. And if you're brothers, you're not taking notes anyway. But if you're sisters, probably chances are you're writing something down. It's okay. But sumbula is singular. Now I'm going to hear from the crowd. What was the singular? Sumbula. What was the plural? Sumbulat. What's the other plural? Sanabil. Now here's the secret. In the Arabic language, they have a concept. I kid you not. This is real. In the Arabic language, they have a concept that you can have singular, you can have plural, and you can have super plural. Literally, super plural. They have singular and plural and super plural. Sumbula is singular. Sumbulat is plural. Sanabil is what? Super plural. So the more powerful plural is which one? Sanabil. You with me so far? Yes. Now let's turn to the Quran. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the ear of grain, sumbula, but He mentions the plural. He says, مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت سبع سنابل. سبع سنابل. Is that the regular plural or the super plural? I don't remember, you have to tell me. That's a super plural, okay. When you turn to Surah Yusuf, it's the only other time the plural is used. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وقال الملك إني أرى سبع بقرات سمان يأكلهن سبع عجاف وسبع سنبلات سنبلات. What was that? Was that the regular? Was that the singular, the plural, or the super plural? What was that? So the weak plural is used in Surah Yusuf. And the strong plural is used in Surah Al-Baqarah. And you know what's crazier? What's crazier is in Baqarah, Allah is talking about 7 of them. Sab'a sanabil. Sab'a sanabil, 7 of them. And in Surah Yusuf, Allah is also talking about 7 of them. Sab'a sumbulatin khudr. 7 of them both times. So the number is equal. This is 7 and that is 7. Then how come one is more powerful and one is weaker? You would say if one is 75 and the other is 7, okay, I understand this one's more powerful and this one is weaker. But mathematically speaking, both of them in number are what? They're the same. Now in English translation, it says 7 ears of grain in Surah Al-Baqarah. And in the English translation, when you go to Surah Yusuf, what does it say? 7 ears of grain. The translation is identical. There is no difference in translation. But Allah chose to use the powerful plural in Baqarah and the weaker plural in Surah Yusuf. How come? How come? When you look at Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah says those who spend, the example of those who spend for the sake of Allah, in the path of Allah, is like a single seed. And every seed gives birth to 7 ears of grain. And inside every grain, في كل سنبلة 100 حبة. Inside every grain there are inside every ear there are 100 seeds. وَاللَّهُ يُضَاعِفُ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. And Allah multiplies on top of that for whoever He wants. The context of the ayah is you will take 1, you will turn it into 7, every 7 will give you another 100 each, and on top of the math that you can do for each of those, 7 times 100, times 7, times 100, for each of those, and you keep going like that. On top of the math you can do, Allah has His own calculations. وَاللَّهُ يُضَاعِفُ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. Allah multiplies it His own way, above and beyond that, for whoever He wants, meaning this calculation is beyond human capability. Is this a context of weakness or power? Is this a context of less or more? So the powerful plural is used. When you turn to Surah Yusuf, the king sees a dream. You remember the dream? Fat cows, skinny cows, 7 years of corn. And the dream is interpreted. And what does the dream mean? You will have 7 good years and then you will have 7 bad years. Is the 7 good years going to give you unlimited resources or limited resources? Limited resources, and you have to use them carefully and you have to store them because you will need them for the next 7 years. So you cannot be careless with the 7 years of grain example. It's going to be less. It's not going to be too much. So you have to ration. Is this a context of more powerful or weaker? Weaker. In the weaker context, Allah used sumbulat. In the more powerful context, Allah used sanabil. It's the same word. It's the same number. Surah Yusuf is a Makki surah. Surah Al-Baqarah is a Madani surah. So the ayat are years apart on the tongue of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Years apart. When he recited Sab'a Sumbulat in Surah Yusuf, it was years ago. And when he recited Sab'a Sanabil in Baqarah, it was years later. Can you imagine that he will think to himself, years ago I said Sab'a Sumbulat. Maybe I should say Sab'a Sanabil here, it fits better. Is that capable? Are we capable of doing that as human beings? SubhanAllah. Just the way Allah describes a single word. A single word. I want to give you one more example of the regular plural, and the singular, and the plural, and the super plural. Just one more example of that. Because it's a fun concept. And it changes your perspective on even one word. How is it being translated? How is that being translated? The word is ni'mah. Probably a word you know. Ni'mah. What does ni'mah mean, commonly translated? Anybody? Blessing. It's okay, you don't have to be afraid. You're going to say it out loud? What if he finds out I said it? Don't do that. You call it out. It's okay. Okay. You came to one of my lectures, which means you should be ready to be embarrassed. So, ni'mah means what? Blessing. The plural of ni'mah is an'um. An'um. I want you to say it. An'um. Okay, so ni'mah is singular. An'um is plural. And then the powerful plural, the super plural, the jam'ul kathra, they say in Arabic principles, is ni'am. Ni'am. Okay? So you have ni'mah, and you have an'um, and you have ni'am. It's pretty cool in the Quran, only one time Allah used an'um. And only one time Allah used ni'am. That's it. One time the weak plural, one time the super plural. And what's even cooler is when you're reading the English translation, will they make a distinction between the weak and the powerful plural, or will they just say blessings? They'll just say blessings, you won't even know there's a difference. You won't see a difference in the translation. Okay. Allah Azza wa Jalla talks about Ibrahim alayhi salam. Very powerful. Describing Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah says, Shakiran li an'umi. Did you hear the plural? Shakiran li an'umi. Was that the weak or the strong plural? Oh, that's a test. Allahu Akbar. Should you say? That's the weak plural. Very good. Some of you are good listeners. Alhamdulillah. 2 of you answered that one. That's fantastic. An'um is the weak plural. And it was used for Ibrahim alayhi salam. It is as though Allah is saying he was grateful to the few favors of Allah. But that sounds wrong. It sounds strange. When we think of Ibrahim alayhi salam, we think of him as thanking Allah for what? Many favors. But the ayah says he was grateful to Allah for few favors. If Allah wanted to say many, many, many favors, He would have said shakiran li ni'amihi. But He didn't say that. He said shakiran li an'umihi. There's a very powerful lesson in this. Very powerful lesson before I go to the other ayah. The lesson in that is, no matter, even if you're Ibrahim alayhi salam, and you are grateful to Allah from beginning to end, and you are grateful in the way that few human beings will ever be on the face of this earth. At the end of your life, when you look back and you thank Allah for the favors that He gave you, you were only able to accomplish thanking Allah for just a few with respect to the actual number of favors He did. Human beings are not capable of thanking Allah in proportion for the majority of His favors. At the end of our lives, when we turn back, even if my entire life was about shukr, I will only have accomplished a minority of shukr. It will be an'um, not ni'am, that I was able to actually thank Allah. As a matter of fact, most people can't even truly thank Allah for one ni'mah. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. The singular is used. If you try to count and truly appreciate the one ni'mah of Allah, you will not be able to encompass it. When we do ni'mah, when we thank Allah for having our eyes, when we thank Allah for having a job, when we thank Allah for having feet and having toes on our feet, when we thank Allah for a tongue that can move, when we thank Allah for these things, we don't even know how much it helps us. We have some idea of how it helps us. We don't even know how much it would harm us. We have some imagination of how much it would harm us. We don't really fully understand the ni'mah. We can only think based on our limited imagination. We can't even do that for one. So it's pretty awesome that Ibrahim alayhi salam was able to do it for a few. It's a testimony to the gratitude of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But the other context, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنًا. He unleashed His favors on you. He unleashed His blessings on you. The ones you can see and the ones you cannot see. ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً. Is this a context of few or many? So He used ni'am. He is the powerful plural. And these are not ayat next to each other. These are years apart in Revelation. Pages and pages apart in the Quran. How do you keep track of what should fit where perfectly? This is what Allah Azza wa Jalla does in the Quran. This was my first example. We're moving along quickly. And this next one of my favorites, actually. Surah As-Saf. Surah As-Saf. Allah talks about Musa alayhi salam, then He talks about Isa alayhi salam. Which nation was Musa alayhi salam sent to? Huh? Bani Israel. Very good. You guys are better than some of the kids I teach. You know? Sometimes you get scary answers. You know, I used to teach at a Sunday school, hey, where was the Prophet born? This kid raised in New Jersey. We got a long way to go. You know? But anyway, Musa alayhi salam spoke to which nation? Bani Israel. Okay. Isa alayhi salam is in the next ayah. Which nation was he sent to? Bani Israel. They were both sent to Bani Israel. Okay. When Allah talks about Musa alayhi salam, He says, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ. When Musa said to his nation. When Musa alayhi salam said to his nation. Who is his nation? Israel. And the next ayah says, وَإِذْ قَالَ عِيسَى Isa ibn Maryam. Ya Bani Israel. And by the way, Musa alayhi salam said, Ya qawmi. Ya qawmi. Anybody know what Ya qawmi means? My people. My people. Lima tu'udhunani. Why do you cause me pain? What kind of people are you? But you're my people. Why are you doing this? But when Isa alayhi salam spoke, he did not say Ya qawmi. He said Ya Bani Israel. Ya Bani Israel. Very next ayah. What's strange is, they're both prophets, they're both messengers, they're both talking to the same exact nation. So how come one of them says, Ya Qawmi, and the other one in the very next ayah, Allah makes him say what? Ya Bani Israel. You see, in Arabic tradition, to be from a nation, your father has to be from that nation. To be from a nation, who must be from that nation? Your father. If my father is Pakistani and my mother is Bangladeshi, then according to that, I am what? I'm Pakistani, even though my mom's Pakistani too. I'm just saying. Okay? Like my kids, my wife is Indian. My wife's Indian. So, and I'm Pakistani. And there's a confusion in the household. So we decide the kids are Bangladeshi, therefore. And that's okay. We settled the issue. But anyway, technically, because I'm the father, then they will be what? Pakistani. More than anything else, they're confused. But whatever. No, and by the way, since I brought this up on Bani Israel, I should tell you recently, I know some of you are like, recently I made friends with a rabbi. Some of you are getting up right now like, I'm leaving here. So what happened was, I was giving a talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam to non-Muslims. I was talking about the place of Abraham in Islam. And I was giving this talk, and a rabbi, like a proper rabbi, one of those rabbis, was sitting in the first row. And the guy was crying the entire time. The entire time. And he came up to me afterwards. And we started talking, we became good friends. We spent some time together and discussed things here and there. We've had some pretty interesting exchange with each other. I told him, look, I want to talk to you about Moses and Abraham. This is why I want to be your friend. I want to talk to you about Musa and Ibrahim alayhi salam, because Allah talks to my master and our Lord in His revelation talks to your people a lot. Ya Bani Israel, Ya Bani Israel, Ya Bani Israel. So clearly you have some background. And Allah is talking to you based on your background. And I want to understand your perspective. I don't want to talk about you, I want to talk to you. I don't want to judge what you say from books, I want to judge what you say from you. You tell me what you believe about Musa, you tell me what you believe about Ibrahim alayhi salam, and they say the most ridiculous thing. They do. We have the most incredible conversations about the prophets. And they are, wallahi, I tell you one thing I learned from that, and we still talk a lot. We call him Ibrahim, they call him Ibrahim, right? And we even have a recitation, Ibrahim, but we're talking about two different people. What we know about Ibrahim alayhi salam, they have no idea. We call him Musa, they call him Mushay, Torat Mushay. But who we call Musa in the Quran, and who they call, wallahi, when you read and when you hear what they say about these same people, you will say, you're not talking about my Musa alayhi salam. You're talking about somebody else. I don't know who you're talking about. That ain't him. You got the wrong address or something. Because we disagree on almost everything. Almost everything.
But you know why? I brought this up. I was talking to you about Surah Al-Saf. One messenger says, Ya Qawmi. The other messenger says what? Ya Bani Israel. Why did I bring up the rabbi? Because the rabbis hold the opinion that to be from a nation, your mother should be from that